Jason, a lone frequent traveler, often sets out with nothing but his backpack, heading to nowhere in particular. One not to stay home and waste his life away. On this warm, beautiful night, Jason had been on the road walking for hours. The highway was empty, the night silent, except for the occasional sounds of wind through the trees. He was miles from the nearest town, alone in the dark, with only the sound of his own footsteps for company. But he wasn't worried. He'd hitchhiked many times before, and the quiet didn't bother him. Not yet, anyway. He was used to long stretches of road with no company, used to the isolation. But tonight felt a little different. There was a heavy tension in the air, something that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just the tiredness of being on foot on a long road with no cars or anyone, just the loneliness playing tricks on him. But then he heard it, a sound in the distance, faint at first, but growing louder, an engine, far off but getting closer. Relief washed over him as he saw the headlights appear on the horizon. Maybe this was his ride, the break he'd been waiting for. Excitement grew as the car approached. He stepped closer to the road, thumb out, hoping for a ride, a chance to get off his feet for a while, at least to the next town. The car was old 1980s sedan, its headlights flickering as it slowed down, pulling up next to him. The driver's window rolled down, and Jason hesitated for a moment, looking over into the car to make sure everything looked okay before stepping closer to the window. The man behind the wheel was rough-looking, scruffy beard and messy hair, his clothes worn, and his eyes dark. He offered Jason a ride, but something about him felt off. Still, Jason's feet ached, his knees shook, and Milltown was a long way off. Jason was too tired to say no, desperate to find a place to relax and get a few hours of shut-eye. Jason stepped into the car, hoping it was just his imagination making him uneasy. The car was just as run down inside as it was outside, and the silence between them was heavy. The man didn't talk much, his eyes fixed on the road, and Jason couldn't shake the feeling that something was just not right. Jason tried to make conversation, asking the man if he lived around here, anything to break the silence. But the man's answers were short. "You could say that," he replied, his voice low and cold. It did nothing to ease Jason's nerves. Then Jason glanced around the car and noticed something strange in the back seat. A tarp, covering something bulky, something that looked disturbingly like a body under the tarp. His heart began to race as he realized he might be in serious danger. His hand moved to the door handle, ready to bolt. But before he could move, the man locked the doors, tapping Jason in the car. "You're not going anywhere," the man said calmly. The half-cocked smile on his face sent a chill down Jason's spine. A terror Jason never thought he would feel in his lifetime. Panic set in as the car sped up, the highway a blur outside the windows. The doors were locked, the windows wouldn't open, and Jason was trapped. He frantically tried everything he could think of, but to no avail. The man said, "You know, people go missing out here all the time. Hitchhikers, no one ever finds them. They just disappear." The man's voice was cold, filled with a twisted, demented pleasure. Jason knew he was in trouble. Sweating profusely, he tried to find a way out. As the man grabbed his arm and squeezed tightly, Jason knew he had to do something, anything to survive. Desperation took over, and Jason grabbed the first thing he could find, a flashlight from the glove compartment. He swung it at the man, leaving a large gash on his head. Blood streamed down the side of the man's face as the car swerved wildly. The car veered off the road, crashing into a ditch. The impact stunned both men. Hurt, but Jason came to first. Jason unbuckled his seatbelt and stumbled out of the car into the dark, foggy night, his heart pounding with fear, not sure where he was, feeling dazed and confused. Jason started running, not daring to look back. He could hear the man swearing, struggling to get out of the wreckage, but he knew he couldn't stop. He had to keep moving, had to get far away as he could from this man. Then he saw it, a pair of headlights in the distance, a truck approaching. He waved his arms, yelling for help, praying that the driver would stop. The truck slowed down, pulling over to the side of the road. The driver, an older man with a concerned expression, looked at Jason with alarm as he rushed to the truck, breathless and terrified. The old man asked Jason, "What happened? You okay?" Jason, panicked, told the old man, "There is a man back there. He tried to kill me." The old man told Jason to get in the truck, his voice steady as he called the police. Jason climbed into the truck, his heart still racing, but as they drove off, something about the old man's expression changed. His eyes darkened, his grip tightening on the wheel. As they drove, Jason noticed the change. The truck driver was tense, his eyes looking to the rearview mirror every few seconds. The unease that Jason had felt before began to creep back in, stronger than ever. He tried to calm himself, but his instincts screamed that something was wrong. And then he saw it. The old sedan. The man he thought he got away from a few minutes earlier, speeding toward them. The man behind the wheel, bloodied but relentless and driving erratically. The old man's voice was cold, filled with an anger that made Jason sweat and his blood run cold. This wasn't just a random encounter. There was something deeper, something Jason wasn't prepared for. Jason said to the old man, "What's going on? Why is he chasing us?" The old man replied, "He is not following us. He is following me, kid. He is following me." The sedan rammed into the back of the truck, jolting Jason forward. The truck driver swerved, trying to shake the car, but it stayed close, relentless in its pursuit. The old man said to Jason, "You picked the wrong night to hitch a ride, kid." The old man's words sent a chill down Jason's spine. This was no ordinary truck driver. There was something dangerous about him, something that Jason hadn't felt until now. The truck all of a sudden darted to the right, pulling into a deserted, dark parking lot. The brakes screeched as it came to a halt, the sedan pulling in right behind them. The man from the sedan got out, his eyes wild with fury. Jason watched in horror as the old man got out too, facing the man from the sedan. The tension was thick, the silence almost unbearable as the two men stared each other down. Then, in a flash, the man from the sedan lunged, a knife in his hand. The old man was quick, grabbing a bat from the back of the truck and swinging it at the man from the sedan. The fight was brutal, the two men moving with a viciousness that made Jason's blood run cold. He was trapped, stuck in the middle of a battle he didn't understand, and he didn't know how to get out of it. Frozen in fear. But the fight took a deadly turn. The man from the sedan overpowered the old man, stabbing him in the chest. Jason watched in horror as the old man fell to the ground, blood pouring from the wound. He knew he was next. The man turned to Jason, his eyes wild and bloodshot. He wiped the blood from his knife, a twisted grin on his face as he stalked slowly toward the truck. Jason was trapped. Jason's survival instincts kicked in. He grabbed the bat from the floor and swung it with all his might, hitting the man in the head. The man stumbled, dazed, but didn't go down. The man lunged, but Jason was quicker, as he was 20 years younger. He swung the bat again, this time hitting the man in the chest, knocking him to the ground. Jason didn't stop. He kept hitting the man again and again until he stopped moving. Blood poured from the man's head. Jason dropped the bat, stumbling back as he stared at the man's lifeless body. He couldn't believe the carsiness on the night, but he knew he had no choice to fight back. It was him or me, Jason said. Then he heard it. Sirens in the distance, the flashing lights of police cars growing closer. Relief washed over him as the police arrived, the nightmare finally coming to an end. The police took control of the scene with their guns drawn. Yelling for Jason to lie on the ground, they arrested Jason, confused and terrified, wondering why he was being arrested, but it didn't take long for them to realize he had been the one that was hunted. As they investigated further, the truth came out. Both the truck driver and the man from the sedan were both stone-cold serial killers, each hunting the other in a twisted game of cat and mouse. The police uncovered a series of unsolved murders linked to both men. The truck driver, who had posed as a helpful Samaritan, had killed numerous hitchhikers, dumping their bodies in remote locations along lonely stretches of highway. The man in the sedan had been one of his intended victims in the past who escaped and had spent years hunting him down for revenge. Jason was released by the police, shaken but alive. As he watched the bodies being taken away, he felt a strange mix of relief and horror. He had survived, but he would never forget the night he was caught between two killers that were out on the hunt for another victim. As he looked down the dark, empty highway, Jason realized just how close he had come to becoming another victim. It was a night he would never forget. A night when the road to safety became a highway to hell. Because sometimes, the only thing more dangerous than a killer on the loose is another killer right behind him. The end. This story was brought to you by Path of Nightmares. If you haven't already, like, comment, share, or subscribe, as I hope I earned your subscription. Check out my channel and my other horror stories that will scare the pants off of you.